Hi there, my name is Eric, and I'm here to give you cross-border interview tips and tricks. Congratulations for reaching this point in the process. You're interviewing with the company that you're interested in being a part of, and we're here to guide you along the way. But unlike your typical generic interview tips and tricks video, this video will give you advice and tools to nail an Alariss interview, which is to say one that brings together candidates and clients from across borders. I'm here to help you identify specific ways of how you can nail your interview with our client and score that job. So without further ado, let's dive into it. You're going to be doing this interview online. So as you probably know, you want to make sure you have a good setup going. Have your lights on you, make sure your background is nice and clean and tidy, and make sure your device and your internet is going at 100. One of the first things that you'll do when you're actually interviewing is introducing yourself. Now, of course, you probably know how to introduce yourself, but when you're doing an Alariss interview, keep in mind the geographical differences that you may have with the client. This introduction gives you an opportunity to explain why you may be interested in working for a company that is based overseas and ask the interviewer themselves where they're based. This likely calls for you to do some homework for where the company is based, and more importantly, some of the cultural and specific points of etiquette and manners that may be different from where you're based. Let's dive into some examples. Active listening and positive feedback. If you're from the Americas, chances are you've been taught that giving positive words of validation or affirmation while someone is talking is a good way to demonstrate that you're listening. However, what you may not know is that for some cultures, specifically in Asia, speaking or including affirmations while someone else is talking may be seen as interrupting. In a similar vein, depending on who you're talking to and where they're located, small talk may or may not be your best friend. Now, this is all to say that you shouldn't try to alter your behavior or who you are in the interview, but rather to be aware of the differences that may exist between you and someone else who's across the world. It probably wouldn't hurt to do just a little bit of homework in order to go into the interview with a level of self-awareness and preparedness. Now let's move on to questions. One question that you may get, as you may consider, is where you're from. Now in an Alariss interview, you have the opportunity to speak a little bit more about this. Chances are your client may not have been where you are or may not know much about where you are. So it could come to your advantage to just share a little bit more. Other questions that our clients have asked in the past speak to previous accomplishments, revenue generated, and some of the wins that you may have had in a previous job. We've also had clients ask candidates situational questions, putting you in a different scenario and seeing how you would respond. Some examples include how you took a client from a competitor, a 30, 60, 90-day plan, and a what would you do scenario. And we at Alariss recommend using the STAR approach. STAR stands for situation, task, approach, and result. It gives you a structured technique for how to answer a question in a succinct, clear, and communicative way. Finally, our candidates often get asked about their relevant experience in the industry and what they would do if they were hired, including the specifics of where they would be, how they'd be able to make the job work, how they can work around time zones and what workflow would look like, and so on and so forth. Now, as daunting as this may sound, the most important thing is to realize and to remember that it is a conversation that you're having with the client. It matters just as much how you present yourself as what you're actually saying. We're going to dive into some questions that you may find useful to ask your potential employer. 1. Expansion in the US or where you're based. Most of our clients are looking to expand in the US, and it's very likely that the job that you're going for has something to do with that. With this, a good go-to question could be about their 30, 60, 90-day plan and some of the specifics on if they have already tried to expand in the US or the Americas. 2. Workflow. It's helpful for you to know what the expectations for the workflow regarding different time zones may look like. When an employer expects you to be on the clock, what the ideal scenario is for the employer, and so on and so forth. And 3, the role's connection to goals. You may be interested in knowing how the role that you're going for contributes to expansion and the ultimate proliferation of their company. And there you have it. That wraps up some of the tips and tricks of some of the things that you may expect, you may be asked, and that you may ask yourself. Ultimately, with an interview through Alariss and with any interview, it's important to do your homework, be positive, and of course, be yourself. If you have any questions, know that your liaison with Alariss is there to help you along the way. We hope that this is helpful for you ahead of your interview in order for you to snag that role.